Call this meeting to order, November the 20th, 2020. All kinds of 20s in there. Like to say, thank each and every one of you for attending this meeting, whether you're attending it in person as a representative of something or either by satellite. So we appreciate your attendance. We know we have Thanksgiving coming up, so I hope each and every one of you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And the reason I'm saying that is because I may have to slip out early. Do at that time, I will turn it over to our Mayor Pro-Tem, Buddy Fowler. So at this time, if you will, please stand. And we'll ask Buddy Fowler to lead us in our invocation.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's bow our heads. Father, we humbly come to you this morning asking your blessings on this council and the town of Surf City. Father, we ask you to continue to work and finding ways that we can battle this terrible COVID-19 virus that we have. Father, we ask you to be to those that have been stricken with it already, be with those and lead and guide and protect them from this virus. Father, we ask you to continue to be with our military, both here in the States and overseas. Make sure you bring them home safely, mend their families, and be with their families, Father. As we have Thanksgiving season coming up, we ask you to be with each and every family as they share this joyful time. Father, and most of all, we ask for your blessings on this whole country of ours. Father, we ask these things in your most precious name. Amen.
Amen. Ask Councilman Don Helms if he'll lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. Okay. We do have a long agenda today, so we'll go ahead and get started with the approval of the agenda. We'll have a motion.
We approve it.
Second? All in favor, raise their hand. Okey-doke. Then first thing on the program is town hall update. And have we got Monteith here? We
yes,
have.
Sir, Mr. Mayor, Amber Walters will be giving us our update. Matt is, I guess, on other assignment, even though we think he's our only guy, but he's got other things to do this morning. But Amber is just as in tune with the project. So.
Well, he's got some good help there.
Yeah, okay. I'll turn it over to Amber.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I don't know if you guys have driven by lately, but it's looking really great. It's going to be a beautiful building. The roof is about halfway done right now. The bone white looks great with the brick. The brick's wrapping up. We're just finishing up the generator enclosure right now, and then they'll be off site. The hardy siding has started to go on. If you drive by, it's that yellow siding you'll see that will be painted gauntlet gray. Our windows and door frames and glazing installs are almost complete. And then our curb and gutter install is also almost complete, allowing us to go ahead and lay the first layer of asphalt before the end of the year. Our goal there is just to keep stabilizing the site, laying the first layer, and then before we turn over the project, that's when we'll lay the second final layer. Inside, we're also finishing up insulation, and chasing that is drywall. So we've already started hanging drywall. That'll be complete before mid-December. And then before the end of the year, we plan to turn on conditioned air. Conditioned air will allow us to bring in flooring, your casework, countertops, and everything, and to start all the finishes rolling along. We're ahead of schedule. We hope to turn this over to you early and get you guys in there. I think that's about it right now. Do you guys have any questions for us?
I'd like to say that y'all have done some great work and have really, from everything else we've heard, y'all really been able to stay on time with all the problem of getting the material and everything. So.
Yeah, it's looking great. We only had one delay, which was the roofing, and that was due to COVID. And as you can see, it's going on, and it's all great. If you guys want to come by and visit the site, just work with Kyle, and we'll be glad to take you around for a tour.
It's been a great Valentine's present.
We were out there yesterday. I'm telling you, they're moving inside and outside too. It looks good.
And the site, and that's props to Chris too, our superintendent. He keeps everything really clean and tidy. And it's just a beautiful site. I'm on 2 projects right now, and this is my favorite project for sure. So thank you for letting us come out here to Surf City.
Well, thank you for all involved.
Yeah.
It looks good. If you haven't been out there, you need to go.
Yeah, something we'll be proud of, and you'll be proud of your work too.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, special events. You're up.
All right, so I do believe in your agenda that you were sent electronically. You did receive a copy of the special event permit manual. This is something that the Special Events Committee and myself have been working very hard on this year. We felt like we needed to have a special event manual, something that could be put on the website, something that could be handed out to the public that outlines all the ins and outs in order to host an event in Surf City, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit. So with this manual, it has a breakdown of facility rates, the fees associated, emergency management action plans and what are needed with that, street use such as need of street closing permit requirements, if you're wanting to do an event such as a 5K, a run, or a walk, street closing information, all of that is listed below in the contacts for that. Alcohol permit requirements, what that looks like within our town limits, who to contact from the ABC Commission for different permitting needs. Tents and canopies, this is done through the fire department and the fire marshal, so the requirements if you're wanting to put a tent within different sections of our town limits. And then just general requirements and accommodations such as the certificate for insurance, weather requirements, parking information, if you're using electrical within any of our facilities, such as outside at the park, what that looks like, sign usage within town limits if you're wanting to put up some sort of special event signage, and then general cleanup and noise ordinance. All the way down to the site map layout of what your event's going to look like, where it's going to be held, what's going to be needed, such as porta potties, things of that capacity. So we feel very good about this. We feel that it's broken down and very user-friendly, so that way the public can go through this manual before they decide on finalizing that they would like to have an event and submitting their application to us, that they know all the ins and outs and what's needed. So with that being said, I do believe you are also sent our information on the nonprofit special event application and the general application. The difference between these is one is for-profit and one is a nonprofit. So on the screen, I do have listed in real time what it looks like on our server through RecDesk for the nonprofit special event application. So you will see that it looks a little bit cleaner than the one that you got through your email. So just to kind of give a breakdown, this is what people will fill out that will be sent back to the Special Event Committee for us to sit down before final approval or decline of the event. So it breaks down everything down to the months that we are not allowing special events due to the amount of calendar events we already have scheduled for the town, so that will be known. If they have to make a change for their event date, they would have to submit a completely different application for that different date, so that way we have that on file. All of our sections of our ordinance are listed within this application. Insurance requirements, again, we have our fees listed. One really nice thing about this application is once you submit it and you give us all the detailed information, you will have to pay for your special event application fee all in the same time. So that way we're not having to go through 2 or 3 different things to get what's needed. It makes this much more efficient for the event organizer and for us as far as the town getting the information and sitting down with the special event committee. So we have everything broken down from applicant information, from the person who's putting in the information. If they're Surf City resident, that's going to decide the factor of the cost. Proof of residency, we want something showing that you are a resident of Surf City. You will have the ability to upload that in a PDF form. If you are a nonprofit, because this is a nonprofit application, you have to give us the legal name of the nonprofit and then again show us proof. This is something we've always done, but it's kind of been a paper trail. Again, this is all in one form, so it's much easier to follow. General information. Everything's broken down. We feel like this is much more detailed, much easier on all of us if you would like to request a rain date. General event details, is this an annual event? Is this something that you normally do? Is it normally in Surf City? Is it normally somewhere else? It notes about sales and alcoholic beverages, obtaining the ABC permit, information on vendors, music entertainment, tent sizes, banners, again, very detailed. If you're asking for roads to be closed, giving us description of that. This, you would also realize that, okay, I understand that I'm going to need an emergency action plan because, I outline that I have more people that are going to be attending this event. You have to come up with a copy of the emergency management plan. Now, when we sit down as the special event committee, these things will be tweaked by our staff, but having a starting point is very important for the organization that's wanting to host the event. An event site plan, this lets us know that that organization has taken the time to think out their event and they've came up with some sort of event site plan. And again, this can be changed due to that special event committee coming into play and what's needed. Fire department, town police, all the general information with the police and what that looks like. If they need use of officers, the rate that they're looking at and what that entails. Again, use of police officers, they're still going to have to go through the police department and give that information over to them in more detail, but this kind of gives them the beginning steps of that. And then a signature at the end for the police department. All this, again, goes with the police department form. And then at the very end, just agreeing and understanding. And then once you get to this step, you would then pay for that special event application fee, which is $150, which is our current rate. That would be for a nonprofit or for-profit. Your price points differ between your residency rates and your nonprofit and profit event status. So again, this is something, the manual is something we haven't had really in the past. The special event application is something we have had. It just hasn't been as detailed. A lot of the times when we get the information to the special event committee, there's still a lot of stuff we have to figure out. This would just be a much more easier for us as a committee and myself to get all that information ahead of time and just in more detail. And I think it makes it much more seamless. So that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I was reading this yesterday, I noticed that you requested a COI, but I did notice that you wanted Surf City added as the additional insured on that COI, which you should do for any event. Am I correct on that?
Yes, so they would list Surf City as where the event is taking place and then a town representative and then themselves as the organization.
It'll have additionally insured on the box, so they have to have town of Surf City on there, and then it'll have the location of the event.
Because all I'm seeing is you're requesting their insurance information, but I don't see specifically where you want them to.
They have to provide us the actual certificate of liability
Yes.
insurance. So
Correct.
they provide the
When they ask
COI,
that, you ask.
we are the additional insured, and then it'll have our name, and also have a staff member's name, but that comes on the COI automatically. It's like a box at the bottom.
Yeah, correct, yeah. Okay.
So is this for public Surf City spaces only? I'm assuming?
Yes, this is for town spaces only.
Okay.
So if you're utilizing wanting to host an event in the park, or for instance, an example, Ocean Fest wanting to host their event within town premises, yes.
I think you did an excellent job.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we
I did too.
Yeah.
thank you, but we have to thank the
That's what
special
we
event
needed. We
committee.
needed that consistency, so every time, something comes up, not all, and I'm sure all the departments appreciate it because, became a burden on the police department, the fire department, all the departments working together trying to get on the same page. So this kind of puts everybody there.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it looks very thorough, and
Thank you.
like you
And-
say, we won't be having an event where one department says, well, I didn't know that was going on, because it's all right there.
And not saying over time there won't be some tweaks or changes that we may decide as growing pains that we have to change, but I do think this is going to be much more efficient for all of us. So I do appreciate it. And again, special event committee, it was all of us. So they put a lot of hard work into it over the last year. So
Good job.
all right, anything else?
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate the work. Okay. Next up is ordinance text amendment. Kyle?
I will be happy to introduce Miss Amy Kimes,
Miss Amy? You want to take-
our town planner. She's been working with the Council of Governments to make sure that we are on the up and up with recent state statutes. How about that?
So the COG was going to be here this morning, but apparently they're not, so you have me. So we contracted with the COG to update all of the Appendix A, B, and C, as well as Chapter 13 in here so that we can continue practicing planning or zoning in the town of Surf City. Without these updates, we would not be able to continue practicing. We had until January 1st originally to get this adopted and everything. Due to COVID, they have pushed that back to June of this coming year. But since we were proactive and went ahead and reached out to the COG early, we were able to meet our original deadline. So basically, this update just changes every time you saw 160A, it now says 160D. It's changed some terminology, there's some new definitions in there. They've updated the jurisdictional boundary expansion requirements. The conflict of interest standards and statements are for planning board are more clearly defined. The updated enforcement procedures for notice of violations and removal of approvals, the updated zoning map inspection and filing standards, updating the statutory subdivision definitions and provided for expedited minor subdivision approvals. We had something similar to that. It tweaked the definition some. We were already doing what we called an exempt subdivision that was very similar to these minor subdivision standards, so that's not a big change for us. But everything now complies with statutory requirements. It talks about the zoning map and ETJ expansions, consistency statements. There's more definitions and explanations of quasi-judicial procedures and how those happen and how we notify the public and those kinds of things. Instead of me calling Stephanie and going, well, what do you do for this? Now it's clearly in our actual planning and zoning appendices. Does anyone have any specific questions about any of the changes?
I think they're doing a good job on this.
The COG did a really good job at this. We were very lucky to get them. Some of the other municipalities waited much later in the game, and they were not as lucky to be able to get the COG, who works at a much more reasonably priced point.
And we'll be able to see a completed thing once you get it done.
So in your packet is the marked up with the changes. Once unless you have any questions that change anything, Chief Ron had pointed out an age discrepancy in Appendix C. So that has been corrected, and that's why Stephanie sent out the revision earlier this week. So if there's no questions, no conversation, I'll reach out to Wes today, and he'll go ahead and accept all the track changes so that it's the clean document that will go into the ordinance.
And the grammatical errors will be corrected.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there a particular grammatical area that I need to be aware of?
You got, the verbiage in some of it, or it should be us or them rather than he or she, those things like that.
I will talk with Wes on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Deed of dedication.
Ordinance text amendment, sorry, we had two ordinance text amendments back to back. The next is the ordinance text amendments from the ordinance review committee that has been meeting on a monthly basis to go through each section of the ordinance from front to back. They started with chapters 3 and 4. Those proposed ordinance amendments to chapter 3, which is animals and fowl, and chapter 4, beach, parks, and recreation areas, are included in here. You'll be able to see the track changes for the strikeouts or what is being removed. And then what is in color is what has been added to the new ordinance, which would be the amendments. Sorry, I just got kicked off my
I think
computer.
that was the part that Billy was talking about anyway.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Stephanie. I was looking at you for deed dedication.
Yeah.
Do what?
We thought she was
I was
covering
looking
all
for
of
you
it.
for
Sorry.
deed of dedication.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah, no,
sorry.
you're good.
Well, we had skipped 3 and went, or skipped
Yeah.
4 and gone to 5, but my computer has since died.
Yeah, this is round 1 of the full ordinance review.
Right.
So this first one is the first 2 chapters. Again, we utilize the structure already in existence for special events to start going through those. So and then adding additional reviewers such as Amy and Scott in code enforcement to make sure we're doing a thorough review and looking at this and who's doing what. Does it need to be amended? Does it need to be changed? Can we think ahead as to what are we not governing now that probably should be governed to have insertions in here? So, you know, as Stephanie had mentioned, those amendments are all track changed. We will continue in this process to bring each work session a new package of ordinances so that we're not doing everything all at once. So it gives us an opportunity to go through it and answer questions that y'all have. And if we need to readdress something, we certainly can in each one of these chapters. So.
Okay, are we through with 3 and 4?
We are, from our standpoint, yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Can I just mention one thing? So
Yeah.
under section 4.9, item 4.9B, surfing, bodyboarding, swimming, rafting, boating, and other similar water activities are prohibited in the waters beneath public and commercial fishing piers at all times. So strictly beneath at all times.
Yes, ma'am.
And then it says surfing, bodyboarding, rafting, boating, and other similar water activities are permitted in the ocean within the town limits, except in those areas located within 300 feet. So, you know, I see where we lean different ways during storms and during the season where people aren't fishing on the pier. And then summertime, I mean, everybody's there. You know, everybody's swimming, whether they're just knee deep in water. They're there.
Yeah.
So how do you say, well, this person doesn't get a ticket and this person does?
Are you talking about the 300-yard?
You're talking about with 300 feet?
Right, yeah. So there's lots of people that, little kids, I mean, and, you know, that just wade in the water, you know, in that 300 feet, but that little kid's not gonna get, you know, or just say a senior citizen is out there wading in the water within that 300 feet. They're not gonna get a ticket, but the surfer is gonna get a ticket.
Yeah,
I've just seen that be controversy in the past, so is there a way that y'all do decide who gets a ticket and who don't get a ticket?
Traditionally.
No, it's always been like that, I don't
We
know.
ask for compliance before we take any kind of enforcement action. So if we get complaints about a surfer being too close to the pier, you know, if somebody's definitely underneath the pier and it's a safety issue, so we want to know the water as soon as possible. We just take it on a case-by-case basis and ask for people's compliance. So there hasn't been that many citations written.
But could we clarify potential different zones, perhaps, within waiting? I mean, I know what you're saying, Councilwoman, in regards to that, and that seems to be, you know, a little.
Well, yeah, because
There's another player in this, Teresa, as well. Each pier leases 750 feet from the state of North Carolina around the pier. And whenever this goes back to probably 2002, 2003, when we started this sort of surfing thing. We got it in lower, and this is what he wanted. He wanted to try, let him move it in, because he couldn't see keeping it out 750 feet. But that's his business. He leases that, and by technicality, by North Carolina state law, when he leases that, we can't let them go in there if he says no. We have to put an ordinance in and ticket everybody that does that. But he was generous enough to relax that and say, we'll try this, but I don't want these surfers up here under the pier, around the pier. We asked him about people swimming and surfboard, and he said he didn't want that under the pier either, but he didn't have any problem with people walking in the water and swimming in the area as long as they didn't get out in the fishing area. But I think we would still need to have him come back in, whatever we did and do. And this 300 feet basically existed because of the surfers and making sure they stayed out of the way of the fish and vice versa. At one time we had it at 500 feet.
Yeah.
He allowed it to come in at 300 feet. And that's been a contentious thing, and part of it goes with our enforcement. We have been lax because we haven't had a code enforcement outlet to do that. We've been lax at the times. The times that it's needed is on the weekends and right on the edge of, not the edge of dark, but after 5 o'clock. And most of the time we're not there to do that or see that. And we have some surfers that go in and encroach on that. Most of it's been better the last 3 or 4 years, 5. But it used to be a big problem. You could go out there any time, and we have the beach marked off. Then the Parks and Rec, we have the 300 feet marked on each side of the pier. So I think that can it be done, and should something be more clear? Absolutely, I don't have a problem with that. I think we should do that. But we need to get, in my estimation, because he leases it from the state, he pays for it every year. We need to get his feelings on it as well. And if he says, yes, this is fine, and no, this is not, then that's what we need to do.
well, I don't think they've really bothered anybody with just swimming in the edge of the ocean or whatever have you.
No, sir. There's so many people that come to the rolling access and go into the water right there. It's almost impossible to keep everybody out in the water within 300 feet of the pier.
Yeah. I guess it's pretty much been left up to the judgment of the policeman.
Right, well, you know, in recent years with the advent of the beach patrol and the interns being on the beach, it certainly helped because they come out and educate people to stay away from the pier. You know, they're visible out there, so the surfers see, you know, they stay farther away from the pier. And I think that overall it's improved.
It has.
Yeah. Before, we had a serious problem, and we even had some confrontations between the fishermen and the surfers, and he was kind enough to come down to 300 foot, and since then, we haven't had a problem. And most of these people that are on the beach that are going in the water there, they're going in the edge of the water. They're not going out there where people are going to be throwing fishing rods and fishing. They ain't gonna get that deep. So I'm in agreement with Buddy, just let him come in, and if he's in agreement with the 300 foot, and I think most of our policemen have enough common sense that they're not going out there and ticket somebody that's waiting in the water. That's not going to happen. The big problem we had was with the surfers.
Yeah, well, and the 300-foot restriction is specific to surfing, bodyboarding, rafting, boating,
Right.
not just wading in the water. But I can set up a meeting with the pier owner and the chief, and we can talk to him about it. And bring it back. And that's the good thing about this is we can talk about these things and figure them out and get them clarified or rectified and move forward with it.
Really, basically, the only change I see, that's a big change, is the, closing it down from March to 15th, or from December the 1st to March 15th, right?
Yeah, removing the time limitation on it.
Huh?
Yeah, removing that time limitation on it.
Yeah, so used to, this wasn't in effect from December the 1st to
Yeah.
March to 15th. But they put it in effect year-round now. So that's basically the only change that was made.
I just think there's so many people that do surf, and it's for a young kid to get a ticket and it be a misdemeanor and on their record, it just, maybe there should be more education on it, I reckon that's what bothers me for just,
Gotcha.
You get a 13 or 14-year-old kid out there that's, they know they shouldn't be doing it and it's a misdemeanor. Maybe if they knew how it would affect their record,
Yeah.
We're not charging any juveniles with misdemeanors.
But that's the way this reads.
It
It
does,
says the violation of this section shall be a misdemeanor punishable.
Right. It can be punishable, it can be under state law, we can also do it as an ordinance violation, but we're not gonna actually write a misdemeanor citation to a juvenile. It has to be referred to juvenile court before that ever happens.
So is that something that your officers are, you tell them you're not writing a misdemeanor for this, you're just doing town court?
They know the law, the state law between the juvenile and an adult. We can't write a juvenile a misdemeanor charge like you write an adult, that's the juvenile court.
Okay.
So, and that process is lengthy, and we're not gonna go down that road for a circuit violation. It's, like I said before, it's a compliance issue. We ask them to move, and they don't move, we seek out their parents, and we talk to them.
Can I say something in my experience, and I have experienced it, I can echo growing up here, being a kid, surfing at that pier, and going through all those experiences and the changes. Surf City PD does educate initially. Now, there were some hard heads back in the days that aren't here anymore. That's probably a reason that a lot of it's not as computational as it used to be. But they would, even before Phil, and way back when Ron was young, they would educate first. But the guys that would continually go back over, they got the whistle. You, in your wetsuit, you get out, and you got a ticket. And you should have. That's what I've witnessed and experienced, and I've gotten close to the pier years back, and they tell you to get out, get back, you paddle over, you get back, no problems. To the point of where, I don't know how many people surf, but when the wave comes in, it breaks towards the pier. We would ride into the zone, catch our wave, not right to the pier, and paddle back to the zone, and they were understanding to know, hey, they're just riding over because that left took them that way. And we go back, and there was never any issues in my experience. Did you have some exceptions there? By all means. But I know it's, like you said, this younger generation is a lot different, and they're going to not test it. The majority of it. And that's from personal experience over years, and they've done a fine job of it. I mean, even when before I was nice.
And I just want to say,
very educational in their approach and professional.
I don't want to beat a dead horse. I just want to say, I understand, 100% agree with you, buddy, 100%. I do understand what Teresa's saying. When things are put in black and white like this, it's our society more and more and more, we're becoming more restrictive and more restrictive and more as time has gone on. And so when you put things in black and white, it is, and you make that rule, and now that rule could be enforced. I mean, severely enforced. So I think what she's saying is there's some small little things you can adjust before it's put in black and white and approved. I think that's what I'm reading out of it. I agree 100% with the rules are the rules, but, you know, sometimes I like the mayor's always said, if there's no problem, I don't want to create a problem. Sometimes, you know, things have operated here smoothly, so sometimes putting something into effect like this, even though it's minute, can affect us long-term down the road.
So why do we have D, violation of this section shall be a misdemeanor punishable by the statute? Why even have that there if we're not going to make it that?
Are you asking English for us?
Yes.
I can't answer that question. I don't know why that sentence is.
Yeah, can we just
So
strike
I would
that?
just say, yeah, I mean, I've kind of underlined, let's
Strike
we
that.
will go back and try to reduce the severity of the violation, however, still have something in there.
Yeah, I'm fine with the part where it says, after that, violations of this section shall also
Monetary.
be liable. Yeah, that, all right, you gotta have a fine, you gotta have a fine. I see other places in this ordinance where there's things that you shouldn't do, like feed stray cats, and there's no fines for that.
Yeah.
So you have fines and you don't have fines.
Sure.
It's a little inconsistent to me, but just striking that first sentence
Yeah.
out of D
Yeah,
would be sufficient.
yeah.
As far as, you know, we would write an ordinance violation before ever going to a misdemeanor, and only use that misdemeanor clause if it's a repeat offender and it doesn't wrong, this will continue to have problems, and that's when we go through the state law and go through the court system.
And that's-
It would just be a ordinance violation at first, or before, and to back up from that, it would be compliance, we'd ask for the compliance first, then ordinance violation, and then we work up the ladder that way.
So maybe, Lieutenant, maybe we can
What if you
do-
put just an or in between it?
Yeah,
What
we
was
could
that?
do that.
What was
word
that?
shall, that word shall in fire code to us.
If you have to.
That, me too.
Yeah.
Words have meaning.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. So if you,
May.
yeah. Well, we can rework that, and this is why you get the feedback that we need. We'll rework that. I think we've got some feedback to kind of clarify that. I would almost see that as, you know, you get your third violation, then you're gonna go to a misdemeanor.
There you go.
You know, that kind of thing. You've been warned, you've been ticketed, now you're $600 in the hole. If you still want to pursue this, then you obviously have enough sense to understand you're
That's
gonna
fair.
maybe have a court date.
yeah, this is sort
We
of
need
left
to-
up as a discretion.
It needs to stay in there that you're subject to
Correct.
misdemeanor.
Yeah.
Because whether you like it or not, that is a deterrent.
Yeah. We'll work this section back again, and thank
Some
you
people
for-
are hard-headed.
You can't get your advice, you get their mother advice.
Okay. We'll send that one back to be redone, right?
Sir?
Okay. Yeah, just send, they gonna work on the,
4-9.
D,
Yeah, that
right?
sentence.
Yeah.
49D,
Yep.
Yeah.
okay. Anything else in this? I think they did a pretty good job. Well, I think they didn't redo it, but the Dune thing is, does a pretty good job. So unless the state comes in and stops you, then you can stop them from being on the Dune. All right. Beach Vitex.
Now we're at saltwater landing.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, deed of dedication. You got that one?
Sure. So in December of 2019, after some lengthy discussions, the town moved forward with taking over the roadways and sidewalks within side of Saltwater Landing, but that is not to include the portion of the sidewalks that traverse through the driveways. We have been waiting for Saltwater Landing's legal counsel to prepare the document for the deed of dedication because of the situation of not taking the sidewalks that traverse the driveways. We're waiting on the verbiage from them. We just received this deed of dedication within the last about 2 weeks. It has been reviewed by our town attorney, Mr. Eads, and he does recommend approval of the document. Of course, it needs final signatures, so if you come to a consensus to move forward with it today, it'll be placed as a consent agenda item on the December 1st agenda.
That sounds good to me.
Looks good to me. I'd say I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Is that good with you? Okay. All right. Extraterritorial jurisdictional sewer request by share the table.
This one, and Mr. Price is here, of course, to answer any questions, but this is a request for extra jurisdictional sewer. They are currently not within the town of Surf City. Share the Table is a local nonprofit that provides food security to our needy. So what they're doing is trying to expand their operations. They've found a tract that they're under contract at Highway 17 and Perkins Road. We do have the ability to serve the property. Council makes the ultimate decision, but the extra jurisdictional rate that we did adopt with our updated fee schedule essentially doubles that cost for the sewer service. They are aware of that going into this, and that is meant to offset the non-use of town water. So it's ultimately. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Price, but yeah, we've talked to them extensively about their project.
That's fair, so you adopt the fee schedule, have it shared with them, they know the system development fees attached and the new rates. They have all the information.
Okay.
And what would be the problem timing in that sewer line out there?
They'll have to put in a lift station at their cost, it's going to cost them quite a bit of money. They're aware of that as well, but the land's going to do to them if they don't have sewer. So they have a lot of options.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need to vote on this?
That is an approval.
Consensus.
Oh, consensus, that goes on to December.
To December 1st.
Just a consensus.
Well, they're a nonprofit organization. They do great service for our community and extended community as well. And I have no problem with, since they know about all the rates and all, I have no problem supporting that.
Yeah. Okay.
So are they getting annexed into the town?
Do what?
Are they getting annexed into the town?
No,
But they're reusing our sewer.
Just our sewer, yeah.
but they'll be paying the higher rate for the sewer because they're outside the town.
But don't we only supply sewer, water and sewer to properties that are part of Surf City?
Not with the
Well,
extra
we
jurisdictional
can't
rate.
say that anymore.
Yeah.
The
We
council
can't.
can make an exception.
See, it sort of threw a kink in what we've always said. We've always said you had to be annexed into the city in order to get this water and sewer. But just because you're annexed into the city doesn't mean you can get
Water and sewer.
city water.
Right, you could use well and water and septic.
No, what the problem come in was that the county, before the county would give us the right to bring in the town water, but now they're not doing that.
Right.
Just like they did up there at the new place up there next to DeBeeva?
Yeah.
They didn't release the water rights to us. They took them and they said they got enough water to do that. So that's why we made an exception to them. to give them sewer, even though we're not giving them water.
Yeah, but that property is already a part of Surf City.
But we had to do the same thing on, we made an exception with this because of the nonprofit, this share the table.
How many other properties do we do this for currently?
I mean, what?
Other parcels do we do this for?
The extra jurisdictional.
Yeah.
This will be the first, but we're gonna have another one too here within a couple months.
So this will be the
family.
Dr. Smith, right?
No, that's the annex.
Yeah.
That's who we're on, that's a little different.
So this will be the first, right?
This will be the first non-annexed piece.
Right, and then the other question is, if we didn't, what options do they have? The county would provide them the sewer?
No, they can't supply the,
That's,
They don't have sewer.
It's too wet for
and
them.
for my education,
and they can't get a septic tank out there.
they what?
They can't get a septic tank in that area.
So they'd be
Out.
not able to do what
Right.
they intend to do.
But along Teresa's line, that's something I think we need to think about. What she made reference to in a nice way was, this is our first time doing this, and we had talked informally about where our city limits line would go, would eventually go, and we know where it takes place over on 210, going down Watts Landing, and where it'll eventually go, coming down Perkins as well, and coming up through that way. Whatever we do, whatever we decide, is gonna bind us for all those other properties up there that hadn't come into the town of Surf City yet. And what Teresa's making reference to is, we're providing a service and to them, giving them access to sewer without them being a town customer in some way, shape, or form, other than the sewer. And they're in our extraterrestrial area, but in her defense, our extraterrestrial area is large. And if any of those other parcels decide they want to come on and they request the same thing, then we're caught either staying consistent or being inconsistent.
Was the discussion had, did they consider annexation?
Yeah, and if this was a commercial venture, not a nonprofit, where we felt that, you know, if you're a nonprofit, you're not really contributing too much into the town taxation.
We wouldn't be able to tax them anyway, right?
That's correct. So if we had, well, let's just say we'll replace share the table with Tractor Supply.
Right.
I would not recommend that we be an extra jurisdictional sewer provider, because we then just give up everything with the sales tax base, with the property tax base, that we won't see with this type of application. So that is why it is you know, everything is gonna have to be looked at individually for potential consideration.
Yeah, we need to spell this out.
It needs to be nonprofit because
In there.
it needs to stay that for that reason.
Sure. Yeah, and we
Because
can
that puts it in a
adjust.
whole different ballgame.
We can adjust the ordinances that way, and ultimately, this is a decision that council makes, not one that Price and I make. You know, we want to be able to provide it, but ultimately, we also want to make sure that we're maintaining capacity for other type ventures, because we are on a limited capacity basis.
Right.
So again, we did look at the very nominal amount of sewer that they would be using, and then also being a nonprofit, the contribution back into the town is very minimal, if anything, from a fiscal standpoint. Now, a service standpoint, of course, they're providing a tremendous service for, I'm sure, some of our citizens.
I think if I don't have a problem with them getting our sewer, but I think we need to look at it, as I said, from a nonprofit standpoint, and put in that as well when we do it, if sewer is available.
Yes.
That leaves us an out.
Yeah.
If we don't have available capacity to take that on, then we can say no.
Absolutely.
Well, I think this is such a small capacity, right, David?
It is equivalent to about one home.
About one home, so.
So that wouldn't be a problem. I'm just saying, down the road, if the future coming.
Yeah, yeah.
then we can
Yeah,
do
we'll
this
look at
and
each
set
one of
that
them individually.
stipulation, and it should be okay.
Yeah, we can set policy, you know, that will help direct the decision-making process from Price and I's standpoint, moving forward, just like an annexation policy that, you know, we can look at. And, you know, as long as we're in this stature that we're in, it's gonna be a case-by-case decision that we have to make for utility service, unfortunately.
Well, I'm in support of it.
Okay,
So before we move forward,
we
we
need a
would
consensus.
change the ordinance
We don't have to change the ordinance in order to move forward with this application, but that is something that we will take into consideration for
In the
policy.
future.
You know, the ordinance can say extra jurisdictional is available, but we can have internal policies that guide the decisions. And again, if this was Tractor Supply on this corner and there's no annexation tied to it, we would not recommend even bringing this forward to council to make this decision.
If I may add one thing, should have tabled it, asked me to reiterate that they are in a due diligence period on this property. And based on the council's decision is whether or not they will purchase this property.
Okay.
I think that due diligence, remember when this, she said that's gonna be up?
I believe they have it extended.
Okay.
The only reason I'm bringing up I've heard from adjoining property owners that if they get sewer, I'm expecting sewer too. So-
Therein comes the question I said about
Yeah.
nonprofit and only, and if sewer is available. Because they would become under the public, not nonprofit, unless they go out and form a nonprofit. So I think we need to differentiate it, and Teresa's right, because I can see that coming once we extend it out in our ETJ area. If we don't have some form of control over it or something different,
Sure.
everybody out there that's got this unperkable land is gonna want sewer.
Well, we've got a lot of them out there that wants the sewer, right?
Yes.
So, and that's what we've been trying to figure out.
Maybe we should ask, Brian, just get his legal opinion.
As far as having a requirement to provide sewer to other individuals, or
Without being a part of Surf City, without
gotcha.
being a Surf City annex.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
Do-
well, any
can we
individual have
annex
to be
them? If they
annexed.
ask,
Huh?
can we annex them?
Do
We
what?
get voluntary annexation.
Yeah, you can voluntarily
If they
annex
request
them.
it.
Yeah.
But if they request a voluntary annexation, then you would have no tax base, and then they'd fall into a
They pay a
sewer
regular
rate.
sewer.
Okay.
We'd lose money on sewer at that point.
Yeah.
So then we would.
So you lose a little bit there.
That's why we never pushed that as even there's no benefit for us with annexation out there for this.
For that particular.
Yeah, that's correct.
There's no benefit for us, and there's a big benefit for them, but what we have to do for us is make sure that we got it worded in such a way that we don't have a wholesale, everybody else come in and
Oh,
say.
yeah, absolutely.
It'll set precedents.
Right. But I don't know if that being nonprofits is gonna be going along and buying something just to get sewer. This is an existing nonprofit.
What is the zoning?
Okay, did we ever get a consensus? Did we ever get a consensus on accepting furnishing the sewer? This is not a vote, but a consensus. And there'll still have to be some things
There'll be a
worked out.
if you come to a consensus today to move forward, there'll be a resolution on the December 1st agenda.
Will we have will that give Brian enough time to look at this and see where we stand?
I'll
before we-
make sure that happens.
Yeah.
And then will you be making the changes to the way that it's it reads now?
Probably not between now and December 1st, but we will start working on that as far as policy and providing extra jurisdictional sewer.
Well, if there's still we could postpone it in December, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can add it as a December 1st, old business item, and if for some reason before we get between now and then, the agenda will be delivered Tuesday of next week for December 1st, then I mean, y'all have reserved the right to amend the agenda in any way you want as long as you have a second to it.
Right, okay. All right. That the way we want to go, Kyle?
Yeah, that'll work, and
Okay.
I'll make sure that we get this hashed out prior to that meeting. And you know, if things are okay, then we can still take action on it December 1st.
Okay. I appreciate it. Next on the agenda is advisory board committee, and I'm gonna turn it over to Buddy this time.
All right, you got, I hope you get good news. Jeremy, you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I'll just very quickly, we were, if Chad wants to pipe in on, I was at the beautification committee meeting last month, and Chad and I were discussing about, they have a couple of members due to COVID and some issues that wanted to stay on the committee but could not be active right at this moment. So they wanted to talk about be able to put them as an alternates and so they could fill those positions but keep them as alternates because they don't have an alternate position currently on that advisory committee. So that's what they're looking to do. Chad, is that correct?
Yeah, so, you know, as they brought to my attention, you've got two members that are technically inactive, so there's really the only choice from the bylaw standpoint is to basically replace the members, and they asked if there was another option, and I told them, of course, any option would have to be approved through you guys, and I think that's where they come up with it.
How many members on that committee?
So currently, there's 5.
And 2 are inactive?
2 are inactive, so you've got 3 that are coming, and they're coming. You just put one on there, and you know they're pretty active. I mean, they actually come to the meetings and participate with the other 2.
The question is, they want 2 alternate positions so that they can have the complete board of 5? Yeah. I don't see a problem. I mean, anyone that wants to volunteer is a good thing.
The meetings, y'all hold your meetings here?
Yes.
Can they do it online, and two that still like to be part of it, can they not do it online?
One of them had a procedure that was done that affects their vision, and I don't think they're out of commission for, I'm hearing upwards of 4 or 5 months. I'm not sure. My suggestion still is that the chair reaches out to the 2 individuals and gets a little bit more information on that. That would be probably the best step on.
I think also too, they were looking, because they're so active, that committee's actively out doing landscaping, they're looking to really have the 2 people that can be physically involved.
I mean, other committees have alternates, right? What's the big deal?
The planning board has alternates because they're an advisory committee for zoning and planning related items to the council, but that's the only, and the board of adjustment has one alternate that's also a quasi-judicial board, so they have to have a quorum, whereas the beautification committee doesn't have quorum requirements.
And I think, are they looking for physical help on the projects they're doing? Is that what they're looking for, Jerry?
I think that's more than anything. I think that was where the discussion came from.
The committee itself, the chairman and the committee members, like we do with other things, should get out and recruit volunteers when they have these projects set up. Because I think in looking from, and I'm just speaking from an observation standpoint, looking at the projects in the past, that the beautification committee has set up, the beautification committee itself, with the exception of the staff from the town and the equipment stuff from the town, is the ones that's doing that, and there's not any help volunteer-wise.
Right.
So I would say that the beautification committee needs to get out and recruit and be responsible and be more active in what they're doing to help with these projects. I don't have a problem putting on off, but I think the same way with Chad said, you know, find out what they want to do. If they want to be on it and we want to move them as always, we can extend, I think the council can extend from 5 members to 7 members, would still take up the fact of give them 2 more members that they're looking for. But just add, I don't think just adding members or adding all of the members is going to increase the participation, is what I'm saying.
Right.
They have to recruit, they have to get out, and they have to do. I think right now, and you're the liaison, so you can either tell me that I'm right or wrong. I think right now, from looking at it, when the projects they've planned, it's been basically the town staff and roughly 2 or 3 people.
Yes, correct.
And nobody else from the volunteers side of the community just come in.
That's correct.
I just think that probably with the education or reaching out would help that process a lot. And that's just my opinion. I don't know if anybody else feels that way or not. But
What's your recommendation?
I only brought this forward because of the discussion. That was my role to bring it forward as Jim, the chairman, and Chad discussed it. Chad says, I don't have a problem with it, but it's up to the council. I only brought the recommendation forward. I agree. I think that if they can bring some volunteers who show their interest and want to be involved, I think then in 3 or 4 months, if those people are super involved, and adding them, I don't think just because we open a position now that means they're going to be involved. So I think maybe we could come back in 3 or 4 months if a couple people want to be really involved, then we could add them to that and move those people. I think that would show that it's worth that process. I think just because they request an expansion, I don't think it's that critical all the time.
Yeah, and just correction, apologize, with Michael Hill, which was just added, there's actually 6 members on that committee, so there's 2 inactive, so there's actually 4 active right now. So
have they reached out to those and they said they want to continue? The 2 that's inactive? Has anybody done that?
Yeah, so they reached out to the one. The one said that they don't want to be removed, but they're still looking several months before they would be able to come back on. The other one, I think they haven't been able to contact or get much out of. I think her husband is in some pretty rough health condition, and it's probably not a priority for her at this point. So, I get it, but at some point, it is the committee, and the committee has certain guidelines on that. So,
I'd like to see, my recommendation is I like to see if I've got a couple of people that want to help, big time involved, then show them the committee that. Then 3 or 4 months we can revisit that process. Hey, these people have been at everything, they've been doing everything, they'd like to be a part of this. I think we can revisit it then. But I don't think it's going to change the status to put you on a committee whether you're going to help or not. So that's just my recommendation. So
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
Is there any chance of combining your committee with Parks and Rec? Because the girls.
For events, for
yeah,
activities?
For
out of my hands.
Well, for beautification, Parks and Rec are the ones that, always shows up with their staff to do the Parks and Rec stuff. Is there a chance of combining those?
Councilman Fowler, that's your department.
Oh, I don't have a problem with that. We'll welcome anything and run and work with it. At one time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, you and Jeremy, we didn't have a very active beautification committee. It almost went down to nothing. And I made some of the meetings, and either me or one other lady or me or Jim Conway were at that meeting. And I had thought about the possibility then to keep it going and keep it where it needed to be, put them under the parks or asking for them to go under the Parks and Recreation Because we do meet regularly, we do put things out, we do educate, we do communicate, we try to get people involved, and it's more than just, it would give better representation, I think, and do it. But I don't have a problem with that, but that'd be up to the council to do, and that's something we probably need to have another discussion on at a different time. But as far as bringing it under there, that will be fine, because we can bring the members they have currently on into the Parks and Rec, and when we combine those until we get later and go with it. But I don't, that's entirely up to the council and the rest of them.
Were you talking about per special events or talking just completely one? Now, what were you referring to? Can I ask?
Like beautification.
Yeah, because
joining Parks and Rec.
join it
Yeah,
permanently?
Have it
Under one.
combined, yeah,
Have it fall under the Parks and Rec department.
right.
Seems like a natural fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were going to change, they they put up a bunch of names to change it anyway.
Right.
They wanted to change the name and the mission and the whole image of that anyway to like enhance city enhancement, whatever they're coming up with. So that's something that, whatever the council wants to do, I'm in, so. So you're talking like a subcommittee of it or actually on that committee?
Subcommittee of it.
And there's actually a subcommittee that is like maintenance of grounds and everything.
It would fit right in with that.
And that works with the staff members. So all the facility and grounds, the supervisor and the crew leader actually sit on that subcommittee, which are the ones that help.
You take it back to the committee and see if that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to make any decision, let him take it back and get it, let them know what the process is and what we're looking at.
Okay.
And
I want
get
to make
it
sure they
paid.
don't lose interest if
Right.
that's the direction that we end
Okay.
up going. So
But it looks like they want help, they're asking for help.
Yeah,
So
for
maybe
sure.
that
They're
would
super
solve-
excited. I'm not going to lie to you. They're a good group of people, man. They're excited about what they're doing, and they do show up and they are involved. So it's been a long time coming, like you said, when it went to next to nothing at one time.
Yeah.
So I don't want to steal that thunder from them also in that same aspect. So, okay. Thank you.
All righty. Let me see where we're at here now. The broker services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro-Tem. I provided each council member a copy of a memo that I prepared. I would have had this to you earlier, but the timing of the proposal submittals and interviews just did not afford that. So on Wednesday, interviews were held with two firms that had responded to the request for qualifications for broker services. This is in regards to the sale of the police department and surrounding property. So within that RFQ, there are certain things that we were looking for to evaluate. I'll start off by saying that the two firms that we did interview, they both did a stand-up job. They did their homework. They were very excited about the opportunity. However, unfortunately, we can only pick one to represent the town. So Dave and I had done those interviews and looked at what they brought to the table and felt that Coldwell Banker Commercial, Suncoast Partners, would be the best choice for the town to go with based on the points listed in the scope of services, as well as the firm's experience, vision for the property and portfolio of commercial sales within the region. So we do look forward to getting them on board, getting this to the next level of marketing and exposure. And if council is okay with that recommendation, to direct myself to execute a contract for those services and get them started. I'd like to have that completed before Thanksgiving so that we can get this on the regional MLS, on their commercial opportunities for marketing, etc.
I trust in your judgment. I'm just curiosity. What is their vision for the property?
So, this came to me as a little taken back, and they're probably better at it than I am. But they really do see that police department probably be demoed. and a full redevelopment. But they would like to put together just a very basic site plan to show potential investors and developers what the opportunity would be utilizing our existing zoning. They were happy to hear that we had already proactively rezoned that to commercial, but ultimately, office plus residential going in there.
I was just curious, thanks.
Yeah, maximizing density.
I had asked, since Councilman Batts is obviously in this field background.
Yes, sir.
I asked what was her recommendation? Was it to use an outside company and about commission? So can you answer that real quick if you don't mind?
Well, I had just suggested, as a way to get it out there to thousands and thousands of realtors that even though it's going to be on, just say we go with Suncoast, they have it listed on their website. Even though it's on, they have it listed, it's still going to be on my website. It's going to be on every other realtor, basically from the Outer Banks down to the South Carolina line over inward towards Fayetteville. I think we're going to request that it be on their commercial site. That's why we're ultimately choosing a commercial realtor, but also it would have to be on their regional flex, which our flex, like I say, goes from the Outer Banks down to South Carolina line.
It's on MLS, is it not?
Well, that's what our request is, that it would remain on there, and the commission would be negotiable.
Absolutely.
Of course.
And those were, I have pointed questions for each of the companies. That Flex MLS was certainly one of those. And it was agreed upon by both firms that, yeah, absolutely, that would need to go on the Flex so that everybody can see it.
Right.
And then, again, a very difficult decision to have to make, because kudos to both of the company. I don't want this to sound like the other proposal was really inferior, but they both have a very strong network of commercial brokerages that once this goes, it then starts to get picked up by other non-Flex MLS commercial avenues. I can't repeat those off of the top of my head, but they both had a pointed strategy for looking at larger metropolitan areas, even target focusing the Northeast, because we're starting to see such an influx of that. So again, we will be controlling this, and it'll be obviously very results oriented. And if we don't feel like they're performing or we're not getting what we need to get out of it, then we can certainly move on. So if council's okay with that, to just.
So you're looking for a consensus recommendation based on what you've got here to move forward with Caldwell Banker?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and to execute a contract with them.
Let me throw this into the mix. I don't have a problem with that, but what I'd like to see from the council, from my standpoint, we have someone that has some expertise in that area on my council. I would like to see her involved in it in some form. Let her work with you and moving forward with this to make sure we get the best bang for our buck. Do you have a problem with that, Teresa?
Not at all. No, I mean, Cal's asked me questions here and there, and I've, that having, yes, things get commercial gets listed usually on a commercial site, but when it gets on that commercial site, there's only a select of commercial. So that's why I had suggested make sure it goes on that Flex site. That way I sell commercial, and most realtors in our area sell commercial every day, even though they may not be on the commercial site. So that's why we requested it to be on that Flex regional MLS.
Would everybody agree if you get a consensus to let Teresa work with Kyle to move forward with this with Caldwell Banker?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Brewer, thank you.
Thank you.
Now this brings us into Ward Smith contract. You're up again, Kyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, again. What you have in your packet was an earlier rendition of a letter of engagement with Ward and Smith, and specifically utilizing the services of Congressman Mike McIntyre to help leverage the most that we possibly can for a single pointed objective, which is to expand capacity for our wastewater system. What this engagement provides essentially is negotiated with them that this does not need to go through the calendar year, that it needs to stay with the fiscal year. It also shortens that term so that we can evaluate what progress is being made with the project. So what has been provided is a contract term through June 30th of 2021. Has two elements to it. So the first one, working with the state legislature to facilitate enhancements to the town's water and sewer infrastructure by pursuing direct state appropriations for system improvements, other state funding mechanisms, partnerships with nearby systems, and/or statutory changes that would be beneficial to the town as it aims to expand its system's capacity. And then working on the federal level to assist the town with water and sewer infrastructure funding, including examination of a wide range of grant opportunities. And that's generally if we're going to see some grant opportunities that come from the federal level. But this is where they will team with the Ferguson Group, who's a grant specialist, and try to get those projects. On the state side, I'd be looking to them to, as it calls out in the contract, but also assisting with regulatory agencies, whereas we need permits for certain objectives that we are pursuing and would want to pursue. And if we can expedite or get those permits, that has the potential to provide the town major cost savings to not prolong additional project development. So again, this is for the remainder of November, which is only 10 days, but the importance of that is that the long session for the state General Assembly is going to be ramping up. So strategy-wise, they want to get ahead of working with those legislators that are already in office, but also the ones that will be newly sworn into the legislature. So again, this has been dwindled down based on our longer list of legislative priorities, focusing those in other areas, and then boiling it down to the sole direction for them to work pointed on sewer infrastructure improvements.
Anyone have any thoughts on it? I know we've used Mr. McIntyre, Senator, I can still call him Senator, McIntyre for a long time, and he's been awful good to us, and we've had some years where we've not had any activity, but I think because of the COBA that we're going to have some money. The states are going to do something for municipalities as well as federal government. They're going to put some pots of money out there for certain things, and I think this will be a good opportunity to utilize Mike again to get into those pots of money that he has the expertise to do. And I have no problem with it. Are you making a recommendation that we do this, Mr. Brewer?
Yes, sir. Just because it's the terms that I had communicated back with Congressman McIntyre is that and he can't find a better person to work with, of course, but he understands that we as an organization are results driven. That's why I didn't want this to prolong beyond that, and gives us the ability to evaluate that and budget for next fiscal year if we have some leads on some good things. So yes, I would, based on council's priorities that we've looked at, this seems to be a good path to move forward on.
Is everybody in agreement? Can we get a consensus on that?
This is currently budgeted for?
We will find money through our utilities because it's strictly utilities. We'll make it happen.
Okay.
We got
Yeah.
All those in agreement, raise your hand. Thank you.
I work with Dave on that stuff. We'll talk with Price here in a little bit. Price knows that Price knows that this is something that we want to look at. So.
Thanks. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we'll move on to the current fiscal year 2021.
Fun.
All right, well, I think Mr. McCall has been here long enough to firmly get his feet planted, and he would like to provide you a mid-year fiscal overview, something that we had talked prior to Dave joining us. With the uncertainties with COVID and uncertainties about revenue projections and uncertainties about everything, honestly, I thought it was very prudent that council requested this mid-fiscal year. So we're not quite at the mid-year point, but with our accelerated budget timeline, this is a good kickoff, I think, for us. So I've talked enough. I'll turn it over to the subject matter expert. Dave, if you'll pleasure us with your financial overview.
Good evening, Town Council. What my overview is going to be containing is going to include general fund, the water and sewer fund, the accommodation fund, the water and sewer reserve funds where we generate our system development fees, and we'll also touch on the beach renourishment funds. So as that said, I'll jump right into general fund first. At the end of fiscal year 6/30/2020, what I'm also going to be presenting is where we ended up this past fiscal year and also where we're at through October 31st of this year for each of the funds that I just mentioned. So the first fund I'll touch on is general fund. As of the end of this past fiscal year, 6/30/2020, the overall fund balance, keep in mind these are still unaudited numbers. The auditors were working virtual last week, so these numbers could change a little bit here and there, but I think they're pretty solid at this point in time. The overall fund balance is projected to end at nearly $6.9 million. It's a net increase of only about $67,000, but I just want to touch on that. I think this was a strong budget. The budget performed quite well this past fiscal year. One thing that had to be done was repairs of roadways as a result of Hurricane Florence from 2 years ago. The funds were appropriated, and jump in if I'm wrong with my history, because it's still fairly new. We appropriated close to $1.3 or $1.4 million to repair some roadways as a result of damage because of Hurricane Florence. That money was spent, the roads were fixed, but in a typical budget year to year, we wouldn't have had that expense, and fund balance would have grown by close to $1.4 million. I just want to point that out. So a typical budget year, that would have been a strong budget year. Again, that's something that over time, that's going to go away, and it's a one-time expense. So I wanted to just point that out. The fund balance, total fund balance as a percentage of operating expenditures at the end of this fiscal year is 65.3%. It's still very solid. Last fiscal year, fiscal year 6/30/2019, it was at 73%. The reason why it dipped down a little bit was because of that increase in the operating expenditures to fix the roadway. It's pure mathematics. That would go down next year, our operating expenditures, because we're not going to have that expense to incur the next fiscal year. It was a one-time expenditure. Revenue increases last fiscal year increased overall close to $1.1 million. Property tax revenue was a major driver of that. Collections were year over year were nearly $558,000 higher over fiscal year 18-19. Motor vehicle taxes came in at quite a robust pace last fiscal year. It was year over year nearly $217,000 higher over fiscal year 18-19. And sales tax revenues increased a little over $202,000 year over year, looking at the two fiscal years. We had a little bit more FEMA reimbursement come in this past fiscal year over 18-19. It was around a little over $262,000. And of course, community development fees have come in quite a bit higher, close to $226,000 higher year over year. As we know, that's as a result of the developments that we've had gone in the area over the last 2 to 3 years. So there were a couple decreases in the revenue last fiscal year. I'm showing that the Pender County fire tax decreased a little over $131,000. I'm going to look into that and just make sure that that number is solid and it's correct, but that's what we're showing at this point in time. Investment income is down $106,000, a little over $106,000 year over year. That's as a result of we have a beach renourishment fund that, when it's fully replenished, it's at close to a little over $16 million. Funds were spent over the last couple of years due to the Hurricane Florence. It's down to, the fund balance is down to $6 million. So you're talking about losing. We invest our idle funds, obviously, and because of that reduction, that's why we saw a reduction in investment income. Once we get that $10 million back from FEMA, of course, that money is going to go right back to work. We'll see that bump up a little bit over time. It's pure, just spending down our beach renourishment fund. Recreation fees were down from fiscal year 18-19. That's pretty much, appeared like they were doing well throughout the fiscal year, but of course we had COVID that kicked in and kind of stopped everything in the middle of March. So there was a slowdown in the recreation fees as a result of that. Expenditure-wise, I touched on this a little bit in the beginning of the presentation. Expenditures overall were a little over $2 million higher over fiscal year 18-19. The bulk of that is a result of the repairs to the roads as a result of the damage that was done because of Hurricane Florence. That was around $1.34 million. The other part of it's not an operating expenditure, but it's a transfer over from general fund to the beach renourishment fund of close to $672,000. So that money went from one fund to another. Let me just go down. This year, I don't know how well it shows up. I'm sorry, Jason. Yeah. Next slide. The analysis of fund balance, I wanted to see where we are now and where we came from going back 8 or 9 years. As you can see, in fiscal year 2011, 2012, our fund balance was nearly $3.2 million. We're currently sitting at the end of the past fiscal year at close to $6.9 million. So it has grown over time. As you can see, we did consume fund balance for a 3-year period going back from 2011, fiscal year 2011, 2012 to 2013, 2014. But then since that time, since fiscal year 14, 15, we've grown our fund balance over that time. With that, our expenditures have also grown. We were at 60% of operating expenditures. Our total fund balance going back at fiscal year 2011, 2012 was at 60% of our operating expenditures. We're right now, 8, 9 years later, we're at 65%. The other one I want to point to is the last row. It's called measurable and available fund balance as a percentage of operating expenditures. That's what the LGC looks at in terms of what is our financial health, because that measurable and available amount is truly liquidity. It's what we have in cash in hand as of 6/30/2000 at the end of each fiscal year. So as you see, we're at 46% going back 8 or 9 years ago. We're currently at 55%. So it is a solid number. And a caveat I want to point out too, with the 65% and the 55% in fiscal year 19-20, again, if we didn't have that operating expenditure to fix the roads of 1.3 to 1.4 million, total fund balance as a percentage of operating expenditures would have been at 75%. So again, this was a one-time expenditure that we had to deal with to serve the citizens, and now it's been dealt with, and moving forward, I think we'll grow fund balance, hopefully this fiscal year too, for sure, for a heck of a lot more than this past fiscal year. But the 55%, the LGC looks at the measurable and variable percentage, and they gauge that as our financial health. So that's the one to really zone in on, because there are some things that are, anything that's in accounts receivable as of 6/30/2020, it's booked as a revenue, but the state, by statute, you're required to put it into a statutory reserve. And that statutory reserve represents revenues that have been recognized, but the cash hasn't come in yet. So I just want to explain that. So that's why they really zone in on the measurable and variable, because that's what you have in actual cash or liquidity at that given point in time to deal with any potential emergencies that come up or any grant opportunities that might come up.
David, don't interrupt you.
Sure.
What's the optimum number? I mean, I know you want to be 100%, but what's an optimum number for that should be?
A coastal community, they like to see a high percentage. Different coastal communities might have anywhere between 70 to 90. I think it's 70 to 80%. I'll let anybody jump in, Kyle, if you might have other numbers, but it's between 70 $290 because of the size of our budget. Our budget's, it's not that it's small, but it's, if you had a $200 million budget, you have more diversity of revenues coming in. A place smaller, the LGC would want you to have, a little bit higher amount. But the one thing that makes us unique, I don't know if it's unique compared to other coastal communities, but once we get that 10.6 million back, that's going to bring us up to 16 million. This doesn't include that beach renourishment fund. This is just looking purely general fund, operating day to day. So when you factor that in, that helps us out too. Obviously, it's dedicated towards protecting the beach, which is the biggest asset of our community. But we're healthy. I mean, if we weren't, they're called the nasty letters from the LGC saying, if your percentages are going down over time and you don't have a plan for it to change that trajectory of your fund balance going down, they might contact you and have a concern. But at this point right now, you can see over the last few fiscal years, we've grown quite a bit. For 3 fiscal years, we've grown fund balance over $1 million. And we would have done that this past fiscal year if it was, the road repair had to be done. And we got just a few $1,000s from FEMA to cover that expense. So the town bore the brunt of the cost of fixing the road. So the next slide is a snapshot of how we're doing this fiscal year 2021 for general fund. Revenues are $262,000, almost $263,000 higher through October this year compared to October of fiscal year 1920. Property taxes right now, collection-wise, through October are up a little over $364,000 higher year over year through October. We still don't have a barometer. I mean, it's good that we're collecting more now than last fiscal year, but property taxes aren't due to December 1st or January 1st. So you're really not going to get a good feel of how because our property taxes are a large percentage of our revenues as a town, you're not going to have a clear picture of where we're headed fiscally on the property tax side until you get through to January. By then, taxes are due January 1st. There's a small grace period people have to pay past that, and then you're going to see the bulk of the collections in by then, and we'll have a clear picture of where we are on a property tax-wise. But it's still positive that we've collected more year over year through this point in time. Sales tax is up a little over $61,000. Again, that's a positive, especially with COVID. I think you're seeing things continue to grow in a positive direction. That's an indication that our economy is still strong and withholding is resilient despite the pandemic. And again, community development fees through October of this year is over $66,000 higher year over year through October. On the expenditure side for general fund through fiscal year 2021, operating expenditures are $1.169 million higher year over year through October. But again, we had to reimburse Pender County, I think it was back in July, $1.3 million for the debris removal from Hurricane Florence. We are obviously, once Pender County is reimbursed from FEMA, they're going to reimburse our funds. But that's money right now that we had to spend, and that we're not sure we're going to get it, but just when are we going to get it? So I can't, hopefully we get it within the fiscal year, then I can include that reimbursement back into our fund balance at the end of this fiscal year. So that said, that's why the expenditures are higher year over year for the general fund. The next fund I want to touch on is the accommodation fund. It's just a snapshot. It increased at the end of this past fiscal year by nearly $145,000. The overall fund balance is $2.522 million at the end of this past fiscal year. One thing, occupancy tax collected year over year, looking from 1920 to 1819, it's down $35,000. But again, that can be attributed to the pandemic. It hit in the middle of March. It was in the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, but everything just kind of stopped for a month and a half. So if it wasn't for the pandemic, I believe we probably would have brought in definitely more money, tourism, occupancy tax revenue than we did. But with that said, we still collected 108% more than what was budgeted in fiscal year 1920. So it's still a very solid number despite the pandemic. Now this number makes me feel positive for this fiscal year and where we're going to end up at the end of the fiscal year. Granted, we're going through maybe a second wave. Who knows how that's going to impact the area, the community. That's a little bit above my pay grade, but it could impact us moving forward. But right now, our occupancy tax through October, compared to October of last year, is over $413,000 higher year over year through October. So that's a very positive number. We've already collected over $273,000 more than what we budgeted this fiscal year for occupancy tax revenue within the accommodation fund. So that's definitely a positive, how our community's been resilient despite the pandemic, and how people want to come here. The next area I want to cover is the water and sewer fund. There was a net increase, I guess you could say a net income of $156,000 in that fund. Overall restricted reserves as of the end of this past fiscal year are $1.343 million. That money really encompasses the cash we have on hand at that point in time and the accounts receivable. That combined makes up what we have in that reserve fund. That's the bulk of what makes that up. So it's a combination of receivables and cash. Revenue increased year over year by about a little over $301,000. The expenses year over year from fiscal year 1920 to 1819 increased a little over $489,000. That can be attributed to debt service payments, the increase in debt service payments, and also in professional services. Those combined areas is where we saw a little bit of an increase in expenses. This fiscal year, our revenues remain consistent through October. When you compare October of this year to October of last year at this point in time, the collections remain consistent. I think that's a positive, especially with COVID and the moratorium that was put in place with collections of revenue as a result of the pandemic. Expenditures at this point in time are $104,000, a little close to $105,000 less than fiscal year 1920 through October. So again, that's a positive number. And the next one I'll touch on is what I call the water system development reserves. That's where, when we collect our system development fees, that's where the funds are recorded into this fund. The balance at the end of this past fiscal year is nearly $2 million. It was an increase of a little bit over $290,000 this fiscal year, year over year. We have dedicated around $360,000 out of this fund to help deal with a well addition capital project that is currently underway. We've received to date through October $375,000 of system development fees thus far through October. And the next fund I'd like to touch on is the sewer system development reserves. At the end of this past fiscal year, it's close to $4.1 million. It increased close to a little bit over $1 million year over year, fiscal year of 1920 to fiscal year 1819. $500,000 has been dedicated for the Juniper Swamp Upgrade Capital Project for this fiscal year. But with that said, we've received close to $1.2 million of system development fees through October of this fiscal year. So that we're going to see an uptick in that reserve at the end of this fiscal year. The next one I want to touch on is just Beach Renourishment Fund. The fund balance as of the end of this fiscal year, this past fiscal year, is $6.4 million. Keep in mind it was at close to a little bit over $16 million before we had Hurricane Florence. It has gone down, close to $10 million, over $10 million. There was a decrease this past fiscal year, close to $3.8 million. So that's again. With that said, this is going to lead me into the next slide. We do have a lot of anticipated reimbursements. I feel like I'm herding cats, working with FEMA, Golden Leaf, and a variety of different organizations that are helping us immensely so we can continue to grow as a community. We are expected, we're in line to be reimbursed $10.644 million back to our Beach Renourishment Fund. I think it's currently in a holding pattern. We are going to get it. It's just a matter of when. Or hopefully we get it within this fiscal year, maybe the next 6 months. That's something that You can never give an exact date because there's a lot of bureaucracy that you have to go through before you end up ultimately getting. But it is, correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, it is in the review process at this point. So I would hope we're going to get it in the very near future. We're also, again, I mentioned earlier on, we paid for the debris removal. We reimbursed Pender. Once Pender gets their money from FEMA, we'll get reimbursed that $1.303 million from Pender County. So again, we're just kind of in a holding pattern. We're going to get it. It's just a matter of when. The next anticipated it's not really a reimbursement, but Kyle was talking about selling the land that the police department is currently occupying. We're going to get proceeds from that. That's going to help go towards the town hall project. So that's another thing that we know we're going to be receiving a large portion of money. It's just a matter of when that sale is going to occur and how much it's going to ultimately end up being. We do have some CARES funding out there from Pender County. I've got to coordinate with the finance director there. We've been allocated over $266,000. I'm going to plan on reaching out to her in the next few days to get that in place and get the reimbursement from Pender County. And Onslow County, we were allocated $69,000. We've currently received around $13,000 from them. So there's another over $55,000 out there of CARE funding from Onslow County that we anticipate getting in the near future. So with that said, I know I'm the one standing between you guys in a beautiful Friday afternoon, but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have on the financial sustainability of the town.
One thing, Jeremy asked you about the percentage. I think as a rule of thumb, the LGC wants to see, of course, every municipality and every community is different based on the size of your budget. We all know that.
Yes.
But the drop dead for them is roughly around 26% of your fund. Is that not correct?
What they'd like to do is they look at towns that fit into your size. Yes, they have a certain percentage they have in mind. The lowest they ever want to see you go is, and you never want to get to this point, is 8%, which is 1 month's worth of reserves to get you through a bad time. Like a hurricane or something like that.
Currently,
We're at 55%, and again, if I think this fiscal year it's going to, I don't want to project too far out, but this fiscal year looks pretty positive, especially when you look at the tourism money. Of course, there's the unknown of a second wave with the pandemic, how it's maybe going to impact the community. Hopefully, it doesn't. We'll continue to see that growth. I think that number will go up even higher. I think it's a healthy number, to answer your question. There's no magic number. They like to look at a combination of how do you compare to your peers being towns comparable to your size that are, especially with us, we're on a coastal, they'll look at other coastal communities. So, outside of coastal communities, they'll look at towns comparable to your size. It could be in the mountains, it doesn't really matter, because we're dealing with potential storms coming in at any given point in time. They group us in with towns similar to our size that are coastal communities. So it's a solid number to answer Jeremy's question. It's not a number that's a bad number. It's a solid number.
October 1st?
No, this is as of June 30th. That's a snapshot. Yeah. And keep in mind, 6/30/2020. That's a snapshot. That's a given point in time of where you're at. So we're what, 5 months? Yeah, five months removed from that fiscal year. 4 months. Looking at this data, the data looking at this fiscal year is through October. So now we're getting cash coming in for our property taxes, and what ends up happening, why they want to see you have a healthy fund balance at the end of the fiscal year, at the end of each fiscal year, is because you collect all your property tax revenue, it's due January 1st. So you start seeing your cash go down through the summer and then into the fall, September, October, and then you start seeing your cash flow uptick again. So if you had a low reserve at the end of June, they're concerned to you with any organizations, if it's too low, is that going to get you through the lean period until you get your property taxes collected? Or you have an economic downturn and your sales tax dip too.
Thank you. And the follow-up to that was, you talking about our reimbursement. I think if we had our reimbursement, which is roughly $12 million, I think, that would have brought us up probably to around 70 to 75% in our balance. But I know the council as a whole 2 years ago, I believe it was 2 years ago, it might have been a little longer, we're looking at increasing that percentage and building on that percentage every year. And that's what we've done, as you've indicated, which means we're heading in the right direction. And I know we have some major expenditures coming within the next year and 2 years. And we will need that reserve, but I think you've done a good job. I understand what you said, and I thank you for it. And one thing, is there any way you can send me that stuff through email or make a hard copy? Does anybody else want one?
I do. We will get it to
Okay.
everybody. Absolutely.
If you would make that available to us, I'd certainly appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Thanks, sir.
the only thing we caveat is they're unaudited numbers, so.
Understand.
No gospel, that kind of thing.
Keep it to yourself.
No, and I'm not saying that. I mean, I think that what Dave has presented is gonna be a pretty accurate numbers, but we do look for that audited seal for.
I mean, what I heard going down each one of those, it seems like that there were net revenue increases. So it sounded like good news to me.
And I think too, one thing, again, I'm new here, it's a little over 2.5 months, but Hurricane Florence is still 2 years removed, is still playing an impact on how we deal with our finances. So it's definitely a theme, even 2 years later. So.
Anybody else have any questions?
I was just going to, so when we get the reimbursements from FEMA, that goes back into the beach nourishment fund?
The 10 million will go back into the beach renourishment fund. The 10.6 million, that will definitely go back into the beach renourishment.
And the 1.3 from Pender or no?
No, that will go back into our general fund, our general fund balance.
The general fund, right?
When the sale of the property goes back into the general fund, which during I reckon, the presentation last year when we were talking about building new town hall, we were stating basically between getting the revenue from FEMA on town hall, the old town hall, the ward building, and the sale of the property, that could potentially put us in a debt-free new town hall and police department.
And that's the goal, absolutely, because the sale of the proceeds from the sale of the land on the island that we're talking about, that's going to cover the police side of the project, yes.
And what was I don't remember, what was the total value for that?
Well, the appraise was.
The appraise is about 3.75.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And keep in mind, we'll have to pay a little bit of debt service on. We'll have to dedicate. There's some debt service from the police.
Existing police.
We'll just pay it off, obviously. Yeah.
It's around 200, I think.
Anyone else?
No.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say before we adjourn?
Just real quick, Mayor Pro-Tem, we have our Thanksgiving on Tuesday for lunch. So everybody had paid up. We'll have a meal together out of Public Works. I think Price is doing a good job at making sure it's ready for us. And nice and
Wonderful.
How are we doing that? Are we cycling through 10 at a time? Or?
Yeah.
So we will have the bay doors open, so we'll be inside and outside. Jody will be preparing tickets. The food will be served to you. Everyone will have gloves, face masks, that kind of deal.
Okay.
And we need to tell everybody that they're gonna light the Christmas tree tonight.
No.
You're not?
We don't want a crowd out there.
Okay.
That's my feeling, because if you paid attention to Facebook and other things, people already said we were going to light it Saturday night, and then we have crowds coming in, and we don't want. I don't want to contribute to COBA. I don't want to do that. So I think if we want to be there, we need to be there tonight around 5 o'clock, 5:30. Stephanie? No.
Staff will be in the park starting at 3 p.m. preparing final measures for the lighting.
Okay. So if you want to see it, you certainly want to come out, but we're not going to announce we're going to light it tonight, because we'll draw a crowd.
Okay.
I thought once they tested the lights, they were just going to keep them on.
Once
Right?
the final test is complete, the lights will be on.
That's
And
it.
then they can come in whenever they want to and do it.
Okay.
But thank you for that. Anything else?
Make
Have a motion to adjourn?
I do. Make a motion.
Motion made, second?
Second.
We adjourn.